the fortunate or unfortunate thing that happened in this country is in 2003, Mwai Kibaki opened education for everyone.
True.
And the economy did not expand to accommodate all these people. There was a chance, because Kibaki left a very high ceiling for debt, to absorb debt. Mm-hmm. These two boys, Uhuru and Ruto, decided to build a railway to nowhere with a lot of money that we're still paying for.
50 years to come.
Yes, Mwai Kibaki invested in education, and he also invested in the cable, which is why Kenya has serious network connectivity. Mm-hmm. He was preparing this country for a future. But then two boys came and they realized, our CRB status is really good. Let's borrow and stash this money in abroad accounts.
So if this system is all messed up, and that system starts with us as a society, do we really have a moral ground for that?
So the current economic system is an economic system of plunder, rape, privilege, theft, that kind of thing. And then we create a justice system that serves that economic system, which when you say there's no justice for the poor, but there's justice for the rich. So the more money you have, the more you can get away with. There's nobody in Ruto's government right now who doesn't have a case in court. Or even if the case has been removed, it was there. Mostly corruption, rape, murder, etc., etc. Why? Because that's who gets to leadership. So it's not like these guys came out of nowhere. They were selected.
Hi everybody, habari zenu, good morning Africa, good afternoon wherever you're watching us from. My name is Nangila Wafula and I am part of the TUA podcast. TUA is the Unheard African Voices, and we give a platform to people who want to say something that have not had the opportunity to be heard. We are not saying you're voiceless, you have the voice, you just don't have a place to place that voice, and we are here to give you the opportunity to say what you have to say, an opportunity to write your own narrative in your own words, to say your story in your own words so that nobody tells the story for you. And today I am joined by very interesting guests, and I will give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. Over to you, gentlemen.
My name is Mutemu Akema. I'm a community organizer. I'm an activist. I'm a human rights defender. But I'm also a movement trainer and facilitator. I'm the co-chair of an African movement called Africans Rising. And in Kenya, I'm a member of a movement that is organizing to take power called Kongamano la Mapinduzi.
My name is Louis Ngonyi. A young entrepreneur. I'm an active citizen for the purpose of this conversation. And I think the reason you called me here is because I write an op-ed on The Nation where I consistently discuss governance and all those issues. But also, I just recently joined the Chief Justice Emeritus's campaign team as part of his political committee. But obviously, I'm sure today I'm discussing general issues as an active citizen. Yeah. Thank you.
So, gentlemen, we will go straight into the topic. The first question I have for you, does the perfect leader exist? And does our demanding of moral purity as a young generation steal the momentum for our movement and derail us? What are your views on this?
Those are two very loaded questions.
Yes, you'll have to discuss all of them.
You could start with one. Does a perfect leader exist? I find that to be an extremely simple question to a very complex situation we're in. The perfection we're thinking about, is it the perfection of this person has never done anything wrong? Or are we thinking about, because the constitution of our country clearly stipulates what Kenyanism means and what being a Kenyan leader means. So in that sense, responsibility and our Kenyan ideal is that sovereign power belongs to the people.
Yeah.
So do we envision that a leader who can respect the sovereignty of the Kenyan people exists? Yes, absolutely. So if we think about the constitutional description or definition of who a leader should be in our country, then of course, there are so many people in this country who idealize the perfection that we're looking for in terms of leadership. And we're not lacking. And I think that question usually is asked in a defeatist tone by the people who have captured the state already. And they say, nobody's perfect. Well, not really. A constitution anticipates that nobody's perfect. And that's why it stipulates very imperfect conditions for which a leader in our country needs to, the mold of which a leader needs to be. So in terms of perfection, in the sense that somebody has done no wrong, then obviously that's not a human reality. But in the context of our constitution, of course, absolutely, we're not lacking in terms of perfection in leadership in our country.
So your idea of perfection is a perfect leader is a leader that is aligned with the constitution.
Yes.
Is that alignment specific to his role or to his previous conduct as a leader, despite not being limited by the same constitution? So would he be a perfect leader if the way we have these ideologies in our communities that you can have a father who is a police officer and he's the best father in the world, but the worst police officer. So does that also contradict in terms of leadership? Like you have a leader who in this specific office of mandate did not hold the ground as the constitution expected of him, but in another office, he held his ground. So we are having him displaying some good qualities in a specific place and bad qualities in another place. So how do we merge these in terms of preparing him for another office, in terms of perfection as you have?
I think the splitting of roles is extremely important. So if you're a good father, congratulations to your family. But if consequentially you're also a good father and a terrible police officer, your responsibility to the state is not fatherhood. So I find, the first family and the kids around our president come to lecture us about the goodness of their father, which good for you, I guess. But we are evaluating your father not as a father, but as a leader of 50 million Kenyans. So the lens within which constitutionally, again, at no point does the constitution describe a leader as a good father.
True.
So if you're a good father within that space, then maybe that's a limitation of your abilities. But if you're unable to hold office, if you're a police officer who's a good father and you come and kill people, then it's fine for your family to still hold you in high regard. But then that doesn't translate to the reality of all the Kenyans that you're supposed to be taking care of. So that separation of realities is extremely important in the sense that you should be able to give us what we sent you for while you're dealing with other things. And if you're not, then you should limit yourself to the scope of your ability. So if you're only able to be a good father, please stay at home and mind your business.
Mutemi?
Where I hear the dichotomy is between a good leader and a good person, or a perfect leader and a perfect person. I don't think a perfect person exists.
True.
But I believe a perfect leader can exist. And using the analogy that Lewis has given, I picture this on June 25th, 2024 or 2025. There's this policeman who leaves his house and kisses his wife and kids goodbye, and then goes and kills other people's kids, and then comes back in the evening carrying bread and meat and whatever and shopping. Ametoka kazi. And what is a conversation around that? Like, what is your job? Like, is given the analogy of the president and the kids. Like, this cop can argue that shooting when I'm given orders is part of my job, is part of my KPIs. Can you say he's a bad policeman? If he's given orders by a CEO, commanding officer, shoot, and he shoots, how would you characterize that? And I think that's where the separations needs to be. When I expound that into leadership, political leadership, presidency, MP, governorship, and all that, there are quite clear guidelines on what an MP is supposed to do, what a president is supposed to do, what a minister is supposed to do, what a civil servant is supposed to do. Very clear guidelines by which you're supposed to judge the perfection you're asking about based on those guidelines, based on what are your deliverables, what are you supposed to achieve when you do this job. And that is clear whether from a house help, when you employ, the questions you ask when you want to employ a house help for your house, to the president. It should be ideally. But unfortunately, we let our politicians get away. We don't even give them a job description when you're voting for them. We are dazzled by the big cars and money and razzmatazz, and so we fail as citizens who are supposed to be active. We fail to hold them to account at the hiring level. Like, this is what I expect you to go and deliver, and this is what I'll judge you by. Which we do everywhere else. In my house, when I'm hiring a house help, in our places of work, such that even if I'm employed as a teacher or employed as an accountant or employed as an usher in a church, there are things that I have to do for my boss, whoever is hiring me, to feel that I'm delivering on my job. And if I don't deliver on that job, there'll be consequences. Either I'll be reprimanded, my salary will be reduced, or I'll be fired. Summarily, most of the time, you're fired. So that perfection is possible only if we know what is it that you expect of leaders and then demand it of them, which is what is happening right now in Kenya and across Africa. That we have a young, very educated, very urban population that knows what exactly leadership is supposed to deliver. And when they ask for perfection, they're not asking for sainthood. Sainthood is at a personal moral level. No, they're asking you, ask for a job as a president, you ask for a job as an MP, and you're not doing your job. We don't want you to be a saint. We want you to do your job the way you applied for that job and the KPIs. And that is perfection. So a perfect leader would be that leader that then when they say, my work, I'm going to grow the economy by this amount. I'm going to build a team to be able to do that. And you're going to hold me to account on that. I'm going to reduce the cost of living. I'm going to ensure that all the kids can attend school without parents being burdened by school fees. Every Kenyan has a right to healthcare according to Article 43. Quality healthcare, not just even. Let me give an example. Right now, those who partake alcoholic beverages in this country, they can never be sure what they are taking.
Sure.
Even when you get what is supposed to be the most expensive, single malt whiskey, you're not sure whether it was made in Kariobangi Light Industries. And it has, and we have institutions. We have Kenya Bureau of Standards. We have other institutions that are supposed to ensure. The Nairobi City County has, an inspectorate that is supposed to ensure that you get what it is that you're paying for. So leadership is not just the political. It's also at that level, at the level where even I am the one who's going to manufacture that fake alcohol and sell it and poison people. Perfection means that does not happen. It is not sainthood. Again, you're not looking for the perfect person. Even Jesus was not perfect. But you're looking for people who do the job they were hired to do. So that, for me, is what a perfect leader is.
Great sentiment. So we have established a perfect leader can exist. Can a perfect leader exist in an imperfect system?
Do I go first?
Yeah, please do.
So actually, that's where the perfect leader shines, because everybody else is mediocre. The leaders who stand out are the ones who stand out. They stand out because when everybody has accepted things are hard, nobody is perfect, everybody is corrupt, these guys who stand out is when they come. I can give examples, like the reason why Lewis is standing with Chief Justice Emeritus Maraga is because when nobody expected him to stand up, he stood up.
Mhm.
When those who had come before him had bowed to the pressure of the state to certify an election, he said, no, the law is clear, and the law says the process has to be verifiable, has to be above board, and it is not. So I'm going to nullify that election. So it's not that he's an angel. It's just that he did his job, and people were surprised that he did his job. That was his job, to do that. Is actually, we get shocked when people do their job and even we beat them up. In fact, in Kenya, if you are given a job in the government of Kenya and you do your job, you will be fired. Because that means you're serving the citizens, you're not looting the state, and you're preventing looting by others.
And then that contradicts your point, because
In what way?
you have said that a perfect leader shines the most in an imperfect system.
Yeah.
But if the system is going to suck the life out of him, how is he going to shine? Because you've said clearly right now in Kenya, if you do your job well, you're fired. I've heard stories of guys who work in ministries, and when audits are done and you don't align to those audits that have been faked and stuff, you are out because you realize that the whole team is aligned
So
in
that's
that.
not a contradiction. It's a statement of fact. Now, the fact that that happens to them
Yep.
is not a contradiction of what a perfect leader is. What it does is that a lot of Kenyans, I was asked a question the other day where the Gen Z expect leaders to come from if everybody is corrupt. And I was like, who's leading our institutions like Safaricom? Who's leading the private sector, the banks, all these things that are working and making a lot of money for shareholders and that kind of thing? It is Kenyans. Okay?
Mhm.
We just don't see them as leaders because the politicians have sucked the air out, and we believe leadership is only in politics. We have religious leaders. We have engineers who are leaders leading the organizations and building beautiful roads. We have civil society leaders who are serving underserved communities. But because we monopolize, and it's not, I don't blame Kenyans. There's a tendency to blame Kenyans for voting bad leaders. But when you're bombarded by, campaigns from the one election to the next, 5 years of campaigns on mainstream media, headlines, radio stations, social media. I mean, you're so immersed in that you only believe that there are 7 people who can be leaders in Kenya. I remember I've had a conversation with people, and I'm like, let's not vote for Raila next year, or let's not vote for Ruto. Okay, lakini siwezi chagua Uhuru. No, Kalonzo. Just 7 guys. And the Kenyan imagination cannot go beyond that 7 guys. So the irony, I think, is what you're pointing at, not contradiction. The irony is the expense of standing out, and that requires now moral courage, and that lacks the moral courage and the costs, because there's a cost. You can be abducted, you can be killed, and your body is picked up in Livayala. If you really go against the grain, I've been abducted twice. You lose your family. When I was abducted, and because of that, my activism has cost me a marriage. Because your wife is like,
We're not safe.
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
It's things we don't talk about. It's your kids either being stigmatized in school by their peers, because we have a society, and not just this society. Most societies, like people want you to conform. The minute you stand out, going against the grain, we beat each other to conformity. That's why we wear uniforms in schools, and that's why, we if you ever observe a policeman, whether they're Kikuyu or Luo or Kalenjin, they all speak the same language.
Yeah, they talk the same.
And they behave the same. That is the uniformity. It's their individuality is beaten out of them by the system. Yeah. And it's not just, if you look at the way people drive matatus, give a good driver, make him a matatu driver for 1 week. He will drive just like those matatus. The language of the so that's what we do, because it's the peer pressure forces you to conform. And the people who become the best leaders are the ones who go against that, which is very rare. So that perfect leader, I'm not saying there's a perfect leader doesn't mean if you ask me to name some, I will name, because it's very expensive to be that perfect leader.
True.
Yeah.
Nice.
I would require for you to explain to me what you mean by an imperfect system so that I'm properly guided within the context of the question.
Yeah, so like right now looking at Kenya,
Right.
I have a personal view that while it is true the president might not have met the people's standards or he's not acting the way we hoped him to act, it goes beyond the man himself. It goes beyond him as the president. And the whole thing trickles down to the whole system that holds this nation together. So we are focused on the man, but there are all other systems that I feel like even if we had a good person like Maraga in your case, that system that is in place will suck him dry. The same way Mtemi has said that a good driver can go on the road and start behaving like the other matatu drivers. What is the guarantee that this, assuming this would be an image of a perfect leader, if he went to that office, this system, because it is not him who holds the country, it is the system around him. So if this system is all messed up, and that system starts with us as a society, do we really have a moral ground for that? Because I am of the argument and the school of thought that leaders are a reflection of a society, and that is something like a friend brought to light, Bulimo. It's that we were talking about the police officers and why police officers are a mirror of the society, but I wanted to bring it collectively on how even our leaders are a part of the society. So we were having a conversation with Mutemi and I was saying the way you saw people stealing iron sheets the other day, and these same people are against politicians who steal. So if that one person, maybe there's a young person there, grows up, and in Kenya it is mass popularity that gets you a seat. So the louder you are, the louder you are, the higher the chances you have of being elected. That's why people keep saying Maraga doesn't have charisma and stuff. But you look at that person, if he ever took a seat and he started stealing, will that come as a surprise to you? Because within the society, he was still a thief. The only difference is that his sins were hidden. So this whole system, and the system includes even us, is not working well. So even if we had a perfect leader, will they be able to really thrive within that system? That is my imperfect system for you.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, a key component of being a leader is to understand that you're called to a higher standard, right?
Yeah.
So first, we've commoditized our politics too much. Whoever has the most money usually wins an election.
Sure.
Right? It's because, however, the amount of noise you can make and so on and so forth. There is immorality, and there's also the extent to which a society pushes people to the wall. So for instance, if I go to a hospital today and my mother is extremely sick and I can pay a bribe to skip the line because we don't have enough doctors, typically I should be able to take a patient in an emergency situation and they will be addressed in a functioning society.
Yeah.
But in a situation where I need to save someone I love, I will pay that bribe. So is that immorality or is that just a situational problem that has been created? So we need to understand to what extent the oppression of the Kenyan citizen pushes them to what we consider immoral. Somebody who steals money meant for children who have cancer, I wouldn't place him on the same scale of immorality as somebody who's stolen for food. One of them is a rotten degenerate. The other one is a person pushed to the wall struggling for survival. So when we have a majority of the country that cannot put food on the table, it is not a very wise moment to try and gauge their morality or lack thereof. The morality, now when you're talking about the systems we have, every Kenyan I've spoken to has a vision and a belief that we can do better as a country. We can rise to a higher standard. And back to the system that we're discussing, the Kenyan system is very clearly articulated in our constitution. The constitution is the manual for Kenyanism. So when, for example, we've got people stealing iron sheets, that's opportunism. I wouldn't call that immoral. Immoral is when you engineer that truck to get an accident so that you get a chance to steal, which is precisely what our leaders do. They engineer the collapse. Maybe, for example, there are ghost schools that receive capitation in this country. And there are bank accounts of people who receive that money. Even when you're considering murder in our justice system, the level of planning to that murder is usually consequential in the extent to which this sin is perceived. So when a truck collapses, for instance, and people steal iron sheets, and these are poor people, one way to think about it is they could have engineered to make sure that lorry had an accident. So I wouldn't call that immoral, really, and I wouldn't call that systemic collapse. I would call that a people that have been pushed to the wall, and they're clutching at anything. Similar to how we've got goons in our country. There's a friend of mine who told me he spoke to a goon, and that goon told him, the 1,000 shillings I was given to be a goon is the first 1,000 shillings I've held this year. We're in June. 6 months. A young person with a degree in this country hasn't seen less than $10 in 6 months. So when you try and gauge that person's morality against someone like an Oscar Sudi, you're losing the script and it's not fair to them. So that person would not wish to be a goon. Oscar Sudi would wish to be a looter any day. So the system we're talking about that sustains these people is a system of poverty. And that system, yes, we've imposed it on ourselves, and it's because of our voting. People don't really respect the vote up until maybe 2027. We usually say, I'll just vote for these people, and they still. But we've gotten to a point in our countries, maybe in our continent's history, where a generation has risen that has decided to call themselves to a higher standard, and they will impose that standard on the leaders that come on board so that we can clean up whatever it is we call the system. Because the same person who steals in government, when they join Safaricom, they won't steal. Because this is not a morality problem. It's just a question on we do not respect public resources. We do not respect the public service. And I think then if we twist that into a morality question, then we alienate a very large discussion on leadership collapse that we have in our country.
And also to your point, I agree with every sentiment that you have shared, but I'm looking at this Oscar Sudi that you have said will loot any day.
Yeah.
So where did this start? This behavior of being able to loot? Because I was listening to a clip on Instagram. I don't remember. I think it was a preacher. And he said the problem with Africa is that we tend to experience the same thing over and over again. So we have become so comfortable in our problems in the sense that we have kids in villages who study with candles, with koroboi in this era that we are living in.
Right.
They use those lanterns and stuff. And these kids, their parents also did the same thing. And going back again like that, you find that it's something that is normalized. Like for me, I have different experiences with my parents. And I'm speaking from a place of privilege because, yes, they might have struggled with school, but they did their best, so I didn't struggle with school. But there are people who have been part of this system and it is repetitive in their families. The same thing. So the preacher said, the problem we're having is that these are the same people who take offices later because problems give you grit. So you work hard and you get to that office later. But because you have never seen what better looks like, you don't materialize better. So you offer the same mediocrity that you had. So that is why you have a politician who was poor, hustler, they say, but cannot relate to the normal hustler's problem. In fact, he doesn't see that as an issue. He's like, I was also through that and I manage, you can also manage.
Right.
So we keep perpetuating the same thing. So I understand that we have been pushed to the brinks. I have so many friends of mine who have lost jobs. I work with an organization that is also losing funders. So things are tight.
Right.
But I'm thinking, if we are going to replace this system, how do we do it if we keep conforming to it and we are perpetuating the same things? Because while in honest truth, that young man, and it's a sad story that is his 1,000, the first 1,000 he held, there is higher chances that he will find himself inclining more. Because with crime, it is always the first crime that is the hardest. With time, you get used to doing it. So how do we protect this young person that 10 years later, they're in office, they don't continue with this behavior?
Right.
Out of the pretense or out of the mindset of, I was also through shit and I made it. So you can also,
Make it.
yeah, why do I have to be responsible for your hard work and stuff? And we see it also in our leaders, because the way Ruto won elections, I will be honest, I voted for Wajakoya. It had nothing to do with the weed.
Yeah.
I subscribed to snake venom, and
Yeah.
that thing is expensive. That was a good business idea.
They're brilliant. Yeah.
But my family, most of them subscribed to Ruto. Why? We are Christians. Man went to cry in church. They were moved. He held a Bible. They saw Jesus. But this man also shared the problems. We were trying to move away from dynasty. So finally, somebody you can relate to.
Yeah.
He was a hustler like us. He was poor at some point. But then he has become something that we are fighting. The very system, I would say it, the very system we thought would protect us has come to eat us back. So how do we work around that?
I would say, first and foremost, the preacher who was talking about how Africans do the same thing over and over, throughout multiple generations, it made sense to invest in your children's education.
True.
It made sense to insist that that child reads their books under that lamp, the lantern. It made sense for parents to sell land to take their kids to school, because there was always a promise, right?
Yeah.
The fortunate or unfortunate thing that happened in this country is in 2003, Mwai Kibaki opened education for everyone.
True.
And the economy did not expand
To accommodate.
all these people. There was a chance, because Kibaki left a very high ceiling for debt, to absorb debt. These two boys, Uhuru and Ruto, decided to build a railway to nowhere with a lot of money that we're still paying for.
50 years to come.
Yes, Mwai Kibaki invested in education, and he also invested in the cable, which is why Kenya has serious network connectivity. He was preparing this country for a future. But then two boys came and they realized, our CRB status is really good. Let's borrow and stash this money in abroad accounts. Now, the reckoning we have is that the Kibaki educated youth have finally graduated, and the promise of go to school and get a better life does not exist anymore. So now, even when you're talking about the child who's studying in a lump, 15 years ago, that would have been a story of resilience.
True.
Now it's a pointless case.
Yeah.
Because we've got a collapse of a dream, a collapse of everything. So majority of the people that typically make it usually go back home, they take care of their families, they build homes and so on and so forth. What we're discussing is a very small group of people like Ruto. Ruto, for example, would like to claim he struggled. Ruto was picked in uni alongside Mudavadi by Moi, allegedly, to join the Youth for Kano, right?
Yeah.
And these are not, if you've been in uni and out of uni, you understand these are two different lives.
Sure.
Right? So the struggle Ruto aids, or just, when you're a child, you don't know you're poor. You're just playing with other kids who also don't have shoes. Because anyway, it's just a reality.
Yeah.
So poverty really starts to kick in when you start getting responsibility. So I do not subscribe to the idea that Ruto has truly understood poverty at a personal level. Because as a child, your parent tells you everybody's eating ugali and skuma daily, and you're like, yay, it's supper, it is what it is. Once you start getting an understanding of yourself as an adult, then all these classes start manifesting. By the time these things are starting to manifest, Ruto is already as a member of Moi's team. And that's precisely what has happened in our country, is since our independence, our leaders have been pre-manufactured. When Ruto is saying is taking a break from dynasty, he's been a part of the dynastic regimes since Moi. He's been in politics. So as a people, we typically don't look for leaders. We wait for leaders to come to us. We say, like Mutemi was saying, the Kenyan consciousness cannot conceive a presidency outside of 7 people. And that's why Maraga is a very offensive idea to most people who exist within the status quo, is because where has he been? And we're saying he's been working. We went and got him and told him, you need to be our next leader. But William Ruto did not come out of nowhere. He's imposed to us by Moi. Uhuru Kenyatta was born in State House, then unfortunately became a president. And all these people, they've been people that were imposed. All the people, and Caswell is a good friend of mine. He came about individually, but he was captured by ODM. So then that becomes a child of Raila Odinga, which will be imposed on our leadership for the next 50 years. Then it's up to us as a generation that's gotten to a point where we realize our dream and our future was stolen. Do we subscribe to this form of leadership where people bring leaders to us, or do we insist on a type of leader that we believe we can work together with? So outside of that, then we will keep replicating this problem. But I'm glad that we're not at a point, and I keep telling people, our generation's agitation for better leadership is not one of courage. It's one of survival.
Mhm.
People, previous generations have been saying, oh man, we've got bad leaders. Our roads are bad. Even when we go to work, we have to go through mud. This generation is saying, oh, congrats, you've got work. I don't have food for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's why these people can't understand how are people running into status, how are people running into parliament and bullets are flying. It's because these guys understand that we either fix it now or we die. It's not a question on being poor. This is a life and death conversation. So I'll pass it to Mutemi.
Yeah, if I could. So there's something that when we speak about these issues and give historical context, people say we are playing victim, we are stuck in the past and that kind of thing. But Ruto has been very keen on removing history as a subject, because what is history? History is memory. And if you don't know where you're coming from,
You can't
you don't know
forge
where
where
you
you're
are,
going.
and you don't know where you're going. You're not able to relate. And so part of what you do as a movement, Kongamano la Mapinduzi, is analyze historical issues and events and how they've influenced where we are. Kenya is a company. When Gachagua says shareholders, he actually is speaking the truth. Because Kenya was started by Imperial British East African Company. To extract, to make money for the owners, the directors of that company, and remove stuff from here and ship abroad. So if we don't understand that, then we will not understand why Sudi behaves the way he does. We will not understand why Ruto behaves the way he does, the way Uhuru behaves the way he does, the reason why Gachagua is behaving the way he is, or Matiang'i, or whoever, and if you give them leadership of this country, they will behave exactly as Ruto is behaving. Because their work is to run this company. And how do you run this company? Over the last 400 years, the way capitalism has worked is by exploiting labor. To maximize production. If you look at just basic, what is it called? Like business studies, basic business studies, the one that is taught in
High
school is called what? Commerce.
It says business studies, yeah.
Business studies, yeah. To make a profit, you reduce cost of
expenses and
production.
Expenses, cost of production.
Yeah.
What are the costs of production?
The people,
labor, inputs, resources, and that kind of thing. So get the resource the cheapest, make that product, then sell it expensively. That is a basic thing about this country. It's about you as a Kenyan being a commodity. Your commodity, the commodity you offer is labor. And the cheaper it is to get your labor,
more profitable.
The more profit I make. So why should the only way they fail is if I was the one in that mold, providing leadership in that mold, I'd ensure that hospitals work vizuri sana, so that I can have a healthy slave system. I'd ensure that transport is like we have, railway everywhere.
So your goods move.
So people who are the resource can move effectively, and so that they can go and slave for me to maximize my profits. You see, that's the imperfection now of the system. Now, once you understand that is the system that runs this country, then you organize and you agitate, and then you get the Constitution 2010 that dismantles that system.
Right.
But then you give it to the same guys who run the other system to implement it. What do?
They import.
They start dismantling the new constitution.
Yeah.
That is the problem you're facing. That you have people who are nyaparas in the old system, in the extraction system, and you're given a new system, a new whatever that devolves power to the village, devolves resources. But who have you put in charge of those resources?
The extractors.
The extractors. What are they going to do? They don't know anything better. And that is a crisis we are having of leadership, the perfection that you are asking for. Because we know these guys are not perfect. In fact, they are morally corrupt, but you've given them a perfect constitution to implement. What are they going to do? I told people in the civil society space, the minute if Ruto becomes president, it was before the elections, and goes to State House, the first thing he will do, he will take the constitution, tear it up, and throw it in the dustbin. I am sorry that I came to be proven correct, because that's what he did. Now, leadership. One of the biggest challenges we have, the crisis of imagination, is that you only believe leaders are politicians.
True.
Once we get that out of our head, we'll start seeing leaders everywhere we look. When I was abducted in 2020, after I came out, everywhere I looked, I could see a Subaru. I would see a Subaru. And I'm like, I never used to see Subarus.
Yeah.
You know, now they are all over. My buddies in Kongomalo Mapinduzi were arrested 2-3 weeks ago. And they were traumatized because they were accused of being part of the goons, you know. And they were put in at Modaiga. When they came out, they were just everywhere. As you are talking, Subaru. So what, because that's the nature of the human mind.
Right.
Whatever you put your attention to, then it manifests and you see it. It was there. The Subarus were there. Just that you weren't noticing them. Now, leadership, I think where we are and where the Gen Z have taken this country, but now it's not just Gen Z, it's Gen Zote. It's where now we will start seeing leaders even where we were not looking. And it's not that they will come from nowhere. They're there. Let me give you an example. So as part of another organization I founded called Mzalendo Halisi Foundation, 14 years ago, this question you're asking, I asked myself that question. And I asked myself, is it possible to have leaders who are not politicians or different role models? And where are they? And can we start amplifying those, telling their stories so that we mentor this generation now that is, can we mentor them differently? And I set out to do that. And I can say, I can claim to be one of the fathers of the Gen Z movement in that I and a team captured X and made it, because what the media was not doing, the fourth estate, we made it the fifth estate for people to hold leadership to account. Very deliberately. It was not by accident. We pushed the Verasidikas and who to Instagram, and we made X the platform for citizens.
Public city hall.
You know? And I'm not saying what Verasidika does is wrong. This is not moral judgment. Just that we needed that space because the mainstream media had been captured. We captured X for that. Now, if you go to any village that you come from, could be even if you're an urbanite, whatever you live, it's a village. I'm sure you have a community there,
right,
which interacts and which has its own welfare, whether it's security or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you decide that you want to have a security committee, there's a name that comes instantly. That would be the chair. If you're going to fundraise, that would be the treasurer. You don't even question, you don't even think about it twice. Right. You trust them explicitly, especially with the money. Any chairman in this country has a treasurer. My late mom was, at some point it became a problem because every chairman that was being started in the village, they wanted her to be the treasurer.
Yeah.
And she was so busy doing treasurer work for different chairmans that she didn't even have time to do her own thing. Because they trusted her with
the money. Yeah.
And which means Kenyans know what good leaders are, because those are the leaders.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're farmers, whether you're herds people, whether you're fisher people, whatever you do, whether you're Juakali, when you form your chama where resources are involved, your resources are involved, where a Kenya is putting 5 shillings, they'll make sure that there's someone competent and trustworthy managing their money.
Sure.
Why don't we do the same with our leadership? Because of now that Kifumba Macho, whereby we don't see, so we hire Ruto to be president.
Yeah.
We give him the constitution gives the job description of what a president is supposed to do. One of the main whatever is that you're supposed to be a symbol of our nationhood. So our unity as a people and bring the country together. That is the primary role of a president, because we're not saying you're the one who knows everything. We are doing our things. We are farming. We are driving matatus. We are contributing to the growth of the nation for all of us. We are paying taxes so that roads can be built, hospitals can be built. We've entrusted you there to provide leadership. And leadership, if you look at the most progressive definitions of leadership, is a leader is the one who creates more leaders. So if I want Kenya to be food sufficient, I will look for the best person to run the Ministry of Agriculture. If I want our healthy population, I'll look for the best person to run, the most qualified best person, and with the managerial skill sets to run. That's what Kibaki did.
Yeah.
He entrusted competent people to run different aspects of government. He created leaders, and he was not insecure that if I get a graduate or a PhD in this, they will outshine me, which is the challenge we are having right now. We have one president who thinks he knows everything. And during Moi's time, we had the farmer number 1, the teacher number 1, the water number 1, kila kitu ni yeye. So leadership exists in this society, in our spaces, with our moms, with our dads, with our uncles and aunties. We know them. Even in a family, even within a family, the smallest unit of this society. If you are doing a family chama, you know who you can trust with money and who you cannot trust with money. And you're all in the same family. Two of us.
Yeah, true.
You know who you can entrust a project, the investment project you're doing together. You know who you will entrust with going to find an architect.
Yeah.
Kuna yule mnajua, huyu mkimpatia nini ya kwenda kununua material. Within that family. So you see, and that is the society you're talking about. It's the imperfection of the society is actually not reflected in our reality.
Yeah.
Because we are discerning enough to know who's a mlevi in our family, who's the one who philanders, who's the one who we can trust with money. It's because the family is a microcosm of the society. And I only wish there's a way we could amplify that, what we do within our families and communities, to the national leadership.
That's it. So, Mutemi, what happens? What's the issue? Is it because we've got a theatrical nature in our politics where we have a moving stage and performance every 5 years?
Someone said, you see, what do you call public money? What is the word that we use in Swahili?
Pesa ya umma.
Pesa ya umma. Ni ya nani? Umma ni nani?
Umma ni sisi, umati.
You see, like it is nobody's money.
Yeah, it's everybody's, but
And
nobody.
because you're coming from that place where the money belonged to the company that was extracting.
Yeah.
First of all, Kenyans and people, Africans, have distrust governments because the government comes from the colonial extraction system. And it was brutal. In fact, when the police was formed in the police ordinance of 1935-36, said the purpose of the African police then, the tribal police, is to brutalize the natives into submission. Because you have these few white people who want to rule over a population, and the way they can do that is using brutality. And that mentality is there. So people avoid government. So people have not enlightened themselves around what is expected to be an active citizen and what is your responsibility. So we talk about rights, we talk about freedoms, but what we don't talk about are responsibilities. And that is the political education we do as part of Kongamano la Mapinduzi, Mzalendo Halisi Foundation, and all the work that I've done in civil society is about bringing out the responsibility you have to make sure that you're governed properly, hold leadership to account. Now, because what people hate, humanity hates, is responsibility.
Because responsibility brings accountability, and no one likes accountability.
Not only of the person you're trying to hold to account,
but yourself,
also. Yeah. Because if you're, as you say, as you're asking that, you kept asking, if I'm corrupt, who am I to hold someone else account for being corrupt? If I'm a thief, who am I? What moral authority do I have to hold another thief to? But the reality is, Kenyans are not thieves.
That's true.
I want you to go into your phone book and pick 100 random numbers and tell me how many of them are thieves.
There are only thieves to the level that I know them.
Yeah, but generally, you know what thieves are. You know what definition. You're like someone who will steal your money, who will corrupt, who will sell you.
As a nature.
They get a chance to sell you, they'll sell you. Or their mother for that matter. Very few, maybe one or two. And maybe even that one or two you don't know. And maybe one day you'll be surprised to hear that they are thieves.
Yeah.
So if we look at this group here, about 5, 6, 7, 8 people here, and we say among all these people, none of us knows a thief. And then everybody says, oh, Kenyans are thieves. Which Kenyans are they talking about?
It's not.
And we all don't come from the same community. You don't come from the same society. You come from different communities. So who are these thieves you're talking? Narratives. And who is the narrative? Who is shaping the narrative? Our political class, who own the media. That's why I love doing podcasts, because here we can have the conversations.
Yeah.
We might have this conversation in a media station and it will never see light of day because it's critical of the status quo or the people that be. So they've controlled. That's why the internet is a threat. That's why Gen Z is a threat, because we are having conversations that they cannot control. The era that Ruto wants to take us back to, which is in the 90s, there was only one radio station called VOK. KBC. It changed to KBC. It was VOK. And the first news bulletin used to be 15 minutes of Mtukufu Rais, this, Mtukufu Rais, that, Mtukufu Rais, that.
Yeah.
That is the president's Ruto envisions. But as he said, the regime
did not anticipate this.
Did not educated the population, and the population is enlightened. It knows its constitution. It knows the rights that rights are not given. And if you don't, so, I was having this conversation and saying, so during the 60s, 70s, and 80s, our compatriots who came before, who agitated against the regime at that time, the system at that time, would be ideologically aligned to mostly socialism or communism. So they'd come with, even now today, those organizations that are an offshoot of that have red something, red flag, red star, red something. Because socialism is is seen as a panacea. When Utu says, I need, Utu or Ubuntu would be what can be described as African socialism.
Right.
Whereby I care about you and I cannot do anything to harm you. I am because you are, and we all we all thrive together or we die together. So you'd come with those flags and berets with the with the logo and that kind of thing. What is the Gen Z doing? Gen Z is coming with the flag, but it's not talking about. It's not either a socialist or a capitalist flag. It's a Kenyan flag, and that flag before that, remember even when Gen Zs were debating whether to come out with flags, there were people on social media telling them, you cannot use the flag. The flag is reserved for ministers.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Does that mean the flag is only Kenyan, our ministers? That's the attitude, actually. That the person with the flag on their vehicle is elevated. They can drive on pavements. They can push other vehicles off the road. They can do... Sally Kosgei said, well, actually what triggered me to become an activist in 2009, Sally Kosgei said, the purpose of the Kenyan flag is to sweep traffic off the road. And then I was like, this is someone who's the head of civil service, assistant to the president then, and that is what they regard the Kenyan flag. The flag that I've been told is the symbol of our nationhood and that kind of thing. To a minister who has been educated by the Kenyan flag, taken to the best schools in the world, and then served in government and given that privilege at the flag ni ya kutoa magari kwa barabara. So what the Gen Z did was reclaim nationhood. They went to the streets with flags and claimed the flag without any ideological slogans. They say, we want accountability. We don't want corruption. We want jobs. We want dignity. And that is so revolutionary because look at anybody who has been abducted or killed, when they're being buried with a flag. We've taken the flag back. We've taken our nationhood back. And that is the process that we are in now of mainstreaming that. And the leadership is emerging. Yeah. The leadership some will be from the old order who will come like Maragas. You're not looking for saints. But also some will be the Mamambogas. The narrative, the beauty about Ruto's narrative about bottom-up is that is actually the solution.
Yeah.
It's just that he took it. It's Ndi who took the narrative to Ruto. It was a civil society narrative that we need a bottom-up economic model. And that is still viable. But it's happening already. Because you look at the Border Association, they have, their leadership. You look at Mamambogas, they have their leadership. All these people want is for a government that then facilitates them to be more effective in what